I'd rather wait. I'm lost and I'm found. It's yours to be. I love when you're around, but I hate when you leave. You decide if you're ever gonna let me know. Yeah, suicide if you ever try to let go.
What's up, guys? I'm here with the Alfa Romeo Giulia in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, where I've spent the last 2 days testing this car's limits on Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a 469-mile stretch of road with no stoplights, no stop signs, no speed limit, no cops. I lied about some of that. There is a speed limit. It's 55 miles an hour most of the way through, but I'm happy to say that if you're going 55 miles an hour on these roads, you're probably driving 8 to 9 tenths. Now, after all that driving, I wanted to do a quick review on the Giulia in this TI trim level. I think this is a great bargain proposition, and it's also a car that the world has kind of forgotten about in lieu of some of its more sensible and, to be frank, less risky competition from the Germans, from South Korea, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But after driving 2 days on these beautiful mountain roads, I'm absolutely Team Giulia, and you're gonna find out why. Get into what makes this car so special, there's a few things that I want to go over, just downsides of owning a Giulia. There are quite a few, but depending on what you prioritize as a driver, some of these might not matter to you. If you're of the mindset that ignorance is bliss and you just want to skip to all the good things I have to say, there's chapters down below. Feel free to go to the fun part. But for those of you who are still here, the word of the day is depreciation. Depreciation. Now, this is something that might be good if you're looking at this car on the used market, but if you bought one of these new, you're probably in a world of pain, honestly. They go for, you know, 45K for the base, 55K for the Veloce. We're not gonna talk about the 80 grand for the Quadrifoglio trims, but you can find these on the used market now for anywhere from 15 to 25,000, and those will have anywhere from 30,000 to, 80 to 100,000 miles. So they depreciate very hard. Now, the other thing is these came out in 2017 and it's still the same generation vehicle. So a lot of those older cars have already gone through their 5 to 6 year depreciation curve, meaning that you can get into these for a pretty low price. If you're a buyer on the used market, I'd say go ahead and buy. If you're a seller, maybe don't sell. Maybe just hold on to it, you know? Now, another downside of owning an Alfa Romeo is owning an Alfa Romeo. This is a Stellantis brand, you have to realize. Alfa has a bit of a reputation for expensive maintenance and reliability issues. They actually left the US market in 1995 following years of poor sales. They took a 20-year hiatus, returning in 2015 with the 4C. Because of that, their dealer network isn't as well established, which leads to periodic parts availability issues. For instance, I try opening the forward sunroof on this model, nothing happens. The owner mentioned that the regulator is on back order, so you'll run into things like that on occasion. Because of their spotty history here in the US, they also don't sell nearly as much volume as some of their German competitors like BMW, Audi, Mercedes. For 2024, the 3 Series had 31,000 sales. The C-Class had, I think, 35. Even the South Korean upstart competitors like, Kia, Genesis, for instance, the Genesis G70 outsold Alfa at 12,000 units. This is just something to come to terms with as an Alfa owner. There's less of them out there and there's less dealerships. Another downside here just comes with how long of a generation this has been. Technology is outdated on this car. It's kind of a mixed bag here. Some of the technology is pointless, like the lane keeping assist, which honestly does nothing. The rudimentary half digital gauge cluster isn't really as customizable as you would like it to be. The backup camera is absolutely awful. The center screen looks beautiful when it's off, but when you turn it on, you realize that the actual screen only fills a small portion of that visual space. And when you use CarPlay, it's really small. So you also have some tech in here that is too intrusive or too restrictive. For instance, the traction control, you can't even turn it off. The auto start stop, you can turn it off, but it resets every time the car turns off. So you gotta keep doing it. And it also locks the steering wheel when you come to a stop. So some of that is a little bit annoying, but it might be stuff you can get over. A couple other things I want to mention: electrical gremlins in this car. There's some stuff with the taillight wiring in the trunk area, and then one of the top reported issues on these cars is the battery drainage issues and voltage problems. Now, it's been said that the majority of these issues come from the OEM battery that's in there from factory. So if you replace that battery, there's like a 70% chance that all your problems are going to go away, or at least some of those problems will be directly caused by that factory battery. And then the final thing that I have to touch on, I feel obligated to, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing this complaint, but there's no manual transmission. It would be different if this was a 2025 model issue, but this car was released in 2017 when manuals were much more common. I know for a fact this car with a 6-speed manual would be insane. That being said, I am a fan of the 8-speed automatic that's in there. It's a pretty quick transmission. You get that nice whoomp when you downshift. I'm sure a DCT would be fun, but I'm happy to report that you will not be disappointed by the automatic that's in here. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about all the great things about this car, which is literally everything else. I'm gonna talk about these in the same order that I noticed them the first time I drove the car. So starting off, steering. The steering in this car is absolutely phenomenal. Using that DNA drive system is gonna have an effect on the weight of the steering wheel, but regardless of what mode you're in, you're immediately gonna have an overwhelming sense of confidence driving this car. There is a precision to this steering that's unlike anything I've ever felt. You even turn 1 to 2 degrees off of dead center, and the car responds instantly. I thought my 8.6 was good, but this honestly is like nothing I've ever experienced. The steering column communicates everything that the wheels are doing, and it's so point and shoot that the car reacts before you've even had time to figure out your next move. I absolutely love it. The second thing that's great about this car is the shifting experience. The 8-speed automatic is a bit dated, and like I said, I'm sure this would do well with a DCT, but even still, the shifts are lightning fast, especially in dynamic mode. Even more importantly, you're connected to the transmission through the largest paddle shifters I've ever seen in my life. They are real aluminum, they're cool to the touch, they have a lovely like click to them, and they're mounted to the column, not to the steering wheel, meaning that they remain stationary when you're going around a turn, regardless of what direction your wheel's facing. They look and feel like something in the 6-figure range, and I can't believe that you find them on the Giulia. Now, yes, you can also shift with the shifter in the center console, but when you've got paddles as nice as these, there's no other way. You feel like you're in a baby Ferrari. 280 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque feels like a lot more when it's packaged this nicely. Now, another thing I like about this car is the seats. The Giulia Quadrifoglio has a carbon bucket seat option, and then the base Giulia has standard leather seats with like less aggressive bolsters. However, in these middle trims like the TI I have here and the Veloce, there's a $2,000 performance driving package which gives you these seats, which are kind of a middle ground between the Giulia Quadrifoglio and the base. They're heated memory seats, they got a ton of adjustability, so you can really get the right driving position. The bolstering is insanely aggressive. You can adjust not only the lumbar support, but also the bolstering too, which means you can control how tight the seats are hugging you. I drove a total of 8 hours in this car yesterday, and my back feels fine today. They hold you in well, they let you focus on what really matters when you're driving. Honestly, I haven't seen seats this comfy in a long time. The only thing that I would criticize them is that they have a height adjustability for the base, but not a tilt, which at that point we're splitting hairs, we're nitpicking. They're great seats, buy them. Now, another thing I like about this car that's less physical and more conceptual as far as the design process is top-down engineering. And what I mean by that is Alfa Romeo designed the Giulia Quadrifoglio first, and then the lesser trims, as opposed to, hate to pick on the Honda Civic, but the Honda Civic, they have the base model Civic sedan. They throw some hybrid tech into it. You have the Civic Hybrid. They build up a performance trim. You have the SI, and they keep building and building on that base model chassis until you have a full-blown Civic Type R. Whereas Alfa Romeo, they take the opposite approach. They intentionally design their performance trim first, and then those lesser trims benefit from trickle-down engineering. Now, this trim is the TI, which is only one step above the base model. Above the TI, you have Veloce, and then the Giulia way up there with its other counterparts. But in this TI, which is $45,000 to $50,000, you have a carbon fiber drive shaft, you've got the sports seats, the same paddle shifters, the same 8-speed automatic transmission, you have a aluminum roof, aluminum hood, most of the same drive modes as the Giulia Quadrifoglio. This car is so much Quadrifoglio inside there. And what that means is when you get into one of these cars and you drive it, you feel that Quadrifoglio DNA in there somewhere, and that's really cool. Now, another thing I love is just the design. Classic Italian design language is something that you don't really find on American roads that often. This car has a very distinct road presence with both the light signature of the headlights and that classic Alfa Romeo grille, meaning that when you see this in your rearview mirror, you know exactly what it is from a mile away. The Giulia has functional aerodynamics, beautiful factory wheels. All the factory wheel options are kind of circular like these, and I absolutely love them all. I would put these style wheels on other cars if I could. You also have an interior that looks and feels phenomenal, despite, maybe not having the most intuitive technology, but everything here is designed with purpose. Every line flows into another. There's no random jagged edges or flashy patterns. You're not gonna find black plastics or chrome anywhere on this car. It's all very tastefully designed. What I've decided I like about this car is that to a certain extent, it's a very reserved vehicle, like visually. It's actually pretty understated, but the fact that it all comes together so beautifully, it still catches your eye. I got so many compliments on this thing this past weekend, and even had a random Quadrifoglio owner cruise with me on the highway for probably 40 miles, like taking pictures and rev bombing. It was awesome. But unfortunately, tomorrow is Monday, and I have to go back to a naturally aspirated 2.4 liter boxer engine.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Anyway, as you can probably tell, I think this is a critically overlooked vehicle that's kind of just fading into the background as we continue to buy BMWs and Audis and Genesis and Mercedeses, and not Infiniti because they're not a luxury brand. Anyway, for 2025, you will see a minor mid-cycle refresh. Honestly, it's more of just a facelift. The new headlights look great. They redesigned the taillights. They finally have a fully digital gauge cluster, which looks pretty good. But they're not investing a ton of money into this platform. Again, it's a 7 or 8 year old platform, kind of taking a cue from like the Lexus RC series in that regard, it seems like. Anyway, I hope Alfa Romeo does well in the future. They did just add the Tonale to their lineup, so that joined the Stelvio as another smaller SUV, and then they're gonna be phasing out the Giulia probably within the next 2 or 3 years. It's tough. I hope they do well. Sales seem like they're on the up and up, but you never really know with a brand like this. What I can say is that this car is a huge value proposition. I think it brings a lot to the table that other manufacturers don't necessarily prioritize, and some of it might seem a bit cliche. You hear Alfa Romeo owners talking about the passion and the energy and all of these, enthusiast buzzwords. What I can say is I think this car is a great value proposition, and I like Alfa Romeo's design philosophy towards sports cars, as well as their actual design language and how it looks. And sure, it's probably tied for Lexus with worst technology in its class, but it's also the most powerful. 280 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque in this package is definitely no joke. Faster than a 3 Series, drives as quiet and as comfortable as a C-Class, and the steering and handling is gonna blow anything from Audi or Genesis out of the water. And while it's not the most technologically advanced, I think that the passion that they poured into creating this car during their whole design process are what make it a worthwhile option against the competition. There's one thought I wanna leave you guys with. It's that you should take a look at the slogan for a lot of these companies, because especially in this class, I feel like they apply really well to these vehicles. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Mercedes, the best or nothing. And Alfa Romeo's loosely translates to the mechanics of emotion. And I could not agree more. I think that personifies this car to a T. And if that's something that you're looking for, that intangible, passion and emotion in the drive, I think you'll definitely find it here. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of departure from my typical 8.6 content. I had this car for the weekend. I had to make a video on it, and I'm really glad I did. So don't forget to dislike, unsubscribe, and I better never see you on this channel again. Goodbye.